Welcome to Unemployed and Afraid, a podcast that explores the glorious mess of building your own business with the people doing it. I'm your host and fellow business builder, Kim Curtin. Thank you for being here. Let's get into some good, honest, small business chat. Well, doesn't this feel good? We are back, or rather, I'm back. You've been here building your business dreams the whole time, but I am back to support you in it with stories of people at all stages and phases of business, people who often don't get enough airtime doing it their way. People who get into the real detail and the personal growth journey that is building a business so that you can connect, learn, and feel truly supported to keep going and building your dreams and your business however that needs to look for you. It's been around 3 months since I last released an episode of this podcast series for you, which is wild, and the longest break since I launched it in December 2021. But I did have a good reason for the break. I've been navigating quite the massive professional change. I have gone from full-time consultant and podcaster, full-time business building to part-time or side hustling or dual hustler. I don't know. None of those terms seem to quite fit. I am learning to balance all the things and having taken on an incredible role that I'll tell you all about very soon. And I just want to take a moment to say to you, the side hustler, I really do salute you, but I will have a full episode coming up for you very soon with exactly what has changed and how I'm learning to rebalance my business dreams and my business doings and quote unquote do it all. And I will share that with you very soon. But today I have something extra special for you about the deeply personal journey that is building a business that I know you are going to love. Starting a business is an incredibly exciting experience, as is seeing it grow. Despite all the chaos in the middle, that growth and that excitement and that energy is wonderful, but we rarely consider what finishing a business might look and feel like. I'm chatting today with Tegan, who is the founder of the immensely successful candle business Stump Co. I've had her on the show before, and it's linked in the show notes if you want to go have a listen. And she shared her incredible business building story with you with so much insight and vulnerability. But today, she's back to tell you the story of why she's now chosen to move on from it. And in a small spoiler alert, it is not because it's not doing incredibly well. In this episode, you're going to hear about grappling with growth options, how to know when to stop, going viral for the wrong reasons, ADHD and dyslexia in business, and the personal growth in every single step of the business that you build. Honestly, the story that Tegan shares with us here, it blew me away. It's a real, relatable, and immensely valuable one on recognizing when we're doing things simply because we think we should, and finding the courage to make change. We are incredibly lucky to hear this story, and I'm very grateful to Tegan for sharing it with us. So let's get into it. I'm here with Tegan Brennan, owner and director of Australian candle company Stump Co, whose Australian woodwick candles, reed diffusers, and candle refills fill every room they're in with that good old Aussie spirit. From humble beginnings, created from her husband's grandma's spare room, it's a business that grew to be found in almost 50 stores Australia-wide and online. And if you scroll back in the show feed to early 2023, you'll find my first conversation with Tegan, where she shares incredibly generous detail about the experience of creating and growing her business. But today she joins me for something different. She's sharing her story about an incredibly common but challenging experience of business ownership, which is making the decision to step away. When we start a business, it's never with the intent to close it down. But as I've said time and time again on here, business has the uncanny ability to make changes for us we never planned for. Might be its structure, to the way it helps us grow, to allowing us to move on to something new. So let's get into Tegan's story about this big change that she's experiencing. Tegan, welcome to Unemployed and Afraid.
Hi, Kim. Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you back. How were you feeling knowing we were going to have this chat today?
A bit nervous because I think I said to you I'm an oversharer, so you're pretty much going to get all the details. Which I really haven't shared with anyone publicly, so it will be a bit scary to do, but once it's said, right?
And you're in very safe hands with both me and the listener, because if it's one thing we know, it's that we do everything in this process terrified. It's just a natural state of being that we feel fear and feel nerves about things, but we do it anyway because that's what entrepreneurs are made of. So take me back to the last time we met. So it was February 2023-ish, I think. Everything was flying along for you at that time. How have your last couple of years been before you made this decision?
It's been a lot of changes. I think probably in the last year was when I really made the decision that I was just hanging in for the year, really, because I was hanging in for my staff. But when you do that, it is hard to hide, even though you think you are hiding it. And so, yeah, last year was a lot of just, just get here, just get there. The year after I spoke to you was kind of full of just a lot of that momentum stuff that I was normally doing with trying to grow and trying to figure out what I wanted it to be. And I think I got to that end of the year. And like normally when I really want something, I drive my husband crazy because I just like visualize it. But I just like stopped seeing it. I just couldn't really. And I'm just diving straight into it. I joined a fabulous program. Look up Seed Lab. If you can get into that program, you're a very lucky person. So I did get into that, and it is a program that's supported by Woolworths, and the coaches on there are really high up in their fields and have a lot of knowledge. And I got to the point with that where I made it through quite a few of their cuts, and it was time to go meet Woolworths, and I pulled out. And I still got you can come back email because they're really lovely people, but I knew I wasn't going back. I sat in Woolworths so many times staring at that candle shelf and I just couldn't see it. And that kind of become more of a realization that, something in me was done.
You and I had the opportunity to connect on a couple of things before chatting today. And I remember you mentioning that you, throughout that period, managed to also get a relationship with like a dream client. And tell me and the listener a little bit about that dream client and the role that that played in Do I or Don't I Move On?
So I'm still very happy about this moment. But so Australia Zoo, every kid in Australia loves Steve Irwin, right? Like, I'm not very special there. So we actually designed a product just to kind of spark their interest with a Brisbane artist. And we got that into quite a few places, but we sent them samples just through Chloe that works for me. She actually had a cousin that worked there. So that's how we like snuck in the door. But unfortunately, the time that we did sneak in, they were having all these staff changes. So it kind of just got a little bit moved around. And I tried a few follow-ups, but it didn't really happen. And then, funnily enough, halfway through last year, a new merchandiser came in and found the samples. And yeah, that's when we got the email. And I was like, oh my God. And then they actually did up their own designs with Steve and some Crocs and, all the fun things you expect at Australia Zoo. And yeah, we made that order. Well, I made that order because I was the only one working at that point. It was a lot of candles. And yeah, I was going to drop them off. And I think this was another realization that although it was such a dream to be there and to just be like a 1% part of what Australia Zoo represents, was we dropped the orders off, which you just take it to a warehouse. You don't actually go into the zoo. So we brought the kids down, but like my whole highlight of the day was just my kids enjoying, everything that is Australia Zoo. And then showing them my product was like great, but like I realized at the end of the day that like if I just dropped the order off there, I wouldn't have had all that special feeling, and that special feeling was just my family. So yeah, I was so grateful that I could finish on that note of getting my products there, because that would have been like a box I never ticked. But at the same time, I just got to the point where I was like, until drop off day, I was like, you can just keep servicing Australia Zoo, like it won't be that hard. But now I have to be honest with myself, like to move on, you have to move on. You can't keep dragging things behind you. So yeah, it was a high point and also very sad, but also stuff that I'm super proud of myself. I got into Australia Zoo, so I don't know who I'm ha-haing at. Probably myself. Down with myself.
That is so much about the journey that I wish more of us did, though, like recognizing the incredible things that we're able to do along the way. Like no matter how we're feeling about where it goes, how it changes, what happens, it is pretty amazing when we give ourselves that moment to go, wow, I did that. And it doesn't take anything away from that, then making the decision to move on from that. Instead, I actually think it's incredibly brave and powerful. What prompted you to really think about moving on?
There was probably a lot of things when I think about it. I got the business to a point where I didn't really know how to grow it, but the knowledge wasn't that I didn't know how to make a business bigger. It was the fact that I knew I'd have to go get money in. I've never taken money into the business, so I knew I'd have to do that. And I was also starting to just feel really alone. Like it started to feel like my husband and my family were over here, and then there was just mum working in the shed all the time. It took me a long time to just not think about a business when I wasn't working. And I felt like I'd given so much to it, and my kids had gotten older now that I realized I was just starting to miss things. And I was like, oh, if you don't go all in, because I was so hesitant on going all in because of a few things that I will talk about. But I knew if I didn't go all in, I was just going to keep wasting my life doing something because I'd gotten to a certain point with it. That I was like, yeah, you really need to think about it. Can you live your life more inclusive with your friends, your family, and your own goals? Like, yeah, I felt like I got to your to-do list with my business. I was like, oh, they're all ticked now. And I just had no dreams to keep adding to it. And instead I was just doing that every day just because I'd done so much. Like, it kind of seems irresponsible to build something and then be like, yeah, no, I changed my mind. I'm going to go do something else. So I was kind of fighting that for a long time. And then also a lot of people don't actually understand what I do because I don't really talk about it that often. That to say that you're closing a candle business, because a lot of people have smaller candle businesses. And I think COVID really boosted a lot of us. But yeah, it is a real hard thing. There's a lot of people that start them up and they don't get as far as they want with them, which is understandable. Like it's a hard gig because it's manufacturing. And I think if more people understood the manufacturing process of the business that they wanted to build, it would really make them question whether that was the right product for them. And that's like coming down to like all the technical things that come with manufacturing and the cost of doing that in Australia versus doing it overseas. But yeah, one of the big things that did happen, and I can't actually remember the date. I think it was maybe even a little bit before we spoke. So I was probably hiding this on the podcast that we went on. So we'll just get it out of the way at the start. Was I did have a viral video, well, 2 viral videos. I don't like to think about how many views they got because it's in the hundreds of thousands, of a comedian that purchased one of my candles from one of our stockers and ended up not going right. And then the comedian put it into their washing machine or something. I don't know, tipped it down a drain, which you don't do with wax. And yeah, and then he flooded his bathroom. So he was having a bad day. I was certainly having a bad day when I saw it. And that was probably the start. If I was going to put a pin on it, that would be the start, because to see your product, everyone wants their product to go viral. Mine went viral for the reason you don't want it to. And my best friend, actually, we were at a fishing comp. So I didn't have my phone because we were at the beach most of the day and the comp at night. And then I was opened it at like 11 p.m. and I just cried the whole way home. And it's like, picture your worst fear and then it happens. But it's something like really special about like private happenings. But I've never had a viral thing like that. And just reading, I read way too many comments. I read everything for a while, which wasn't healthy. I really appreciate the people in my life at the time because Leah just stuck her head down and took over and ran the business for me. Hubby took the kids to school because I was literally in a black hole. I thought I didn't want to get out of. It was like every excuse to sit and mourn I had. And yeah, I just sat there for ages, like not hearing. I don't know if I'm crazy, but that voice in your head that's like, no, we'll do this, we'll do that, it'll be okay. Yeah, that was gone. And then also like people that saw it would try and comfort me, which was nice, but it didn't help. And then maybe 4 days later, I don't know, I finally got up and was like, oh, I've got to try and do something. Just got all the stock on the shelf and just started burning it. And then like just sat in front of the pot, just like making all these candles. And I was like, I'm going to figure out what did it, because it caused a wax pool. So basically, for folks at home, which I hope you know, That's some things to do. Never throw water on a candle because they're oil. Not that the guy did that, but you just smother them. So you just cut oxygen and it will go out. So you don't tip it down the drain. But anyway, he made it quite funny. I've got nothing against him. Like, he's a comedian. Like, if it wasn't my candle, I would laugh. But it was my candle, so I cried. The opposite. But yeah, then I just went into like a manic state, I think, of like a week, pouring and wasting way too many materials, trying to figure out exactly what happened. I finally worked it out. So like there's the comment that you see a lot in like small candle communities, like, oh, why don't you test your candles? And I'm like, well, of course I do. Like, I'm not rogue. But when you manufacture to a certain size, like it gets to the point where you could, like, I keep a sample from the batch, but you can't burn all your products. So at some point you've got to trust your suppliers. Anyway, it came down to our wick supplier. We noticed in the packs that there was a thickness difference in some of them. And then like a perfect storm of a few things burning past the recommended time on a candle. So it became like large, and then the wax pool on top becomes the same heat as the wax, and then it turns into a little fire. Anyway, that's what I ended up working it out to. So then we made all these changes to the product. We changed some of the formula with the wicks. And anyway, it ended up being a good thing for us because I felt more confident in the product than I'd ever like felt. Well, I wasn't really questioning it until that point. But yeah, it was a really hard time. Ashamed to say I sat there on other candle businesses' products scrolling their reviews, especially the big ones, because I was like making myself feel better when I'd read their candle fire things. But yeah, it kind of really came to the point where in my own head I was like, you're being a bit selfish at the moment to put just so much pity on yourself for this. You're not the only one that stuff happens to. Like, things get recalled all the time. I think joining the Woolworths program actually quite helped with that because they go through recalls and how common it is. But yeah, just when you're like so in love with your product and so confident in it, when something like that happened, I was a crushed little soul for a while. This is the first time I'm talking about it, actually. No one really asks me about it anymore. But every now and again, I'm like, oh God, that video still exists. Or if I take my product somewhere, will they have seen that video? That became a big thing for me for a long time, feeling that I couldn't put my products out in the world anymore because they might have seen it. It also made me really hate candles, if I'm completely honest. It's such a product that people love, but it's dangerous too. Like, the amount of times that people just don't even read instructions on something that is literally fire is kind of crazy. I'm like, maybe I should just use this podcast to advocate for candle care. Maybe I don't make candles anymore. It really made me feel like I couldn't put it out in the world anymore. And it took me a long time to even chase new leads. Like, I was kind of just sitting on the sales that I had, which was lucky because I did have a solid base of customers. And like, I think we finished up over 1,000 5-star reviews at the end of our life. And I'm still getting daily emails. I wish I was drinking, of people asking me, can they put in another order? And to be honest, when I closed, I said to my husband, put the closing post up. And I think it sat there for 5 minutes. And I was like, yep, no one cares. See, I rang Luke and I'm like, it doesn't even have one like. I told you no one would care. I could just disappear. It's fine. And then it started pretty much when I hung up the phone. So yeah, it was an incredible way to finish. The amount of emails that I received of people just telling me how much my product meant to them, the scents reminded them of the places, everything from like their homes that they lived in to their loved ones that passed away. Like a few of them actually made me cry. I'm not really a crier. And I was like sitting there like weeping because I remembered the customer when they were really freshly going through that. And then they emailed me at the end, and it was incredible. Like, I was just sitting there thinking, I think because I'd fallen so out of love with candles, I was like, nobody values this. I don't value it. No one values it. And I had to sit there and try and reply to all these people that were telling me how much it meant to them. It was like the opposite of how I thought I was going out. I literally like did all my end of year sales, and I was like, oh, I've given the people the sales. Like, they won't want another sale. And then, it like blew me away. I wish I wrote numbers down for you, but it was like 238 or something orders that we ended up processing. So to give you like a reasonable idea, I think normally like Black Friday sales, I think was like 85 orders, maybe a bit more. So considering that we'd already done those sales and people were coming back and purchasing for a last time, I was like, this is really cool. And I didn't do the whole Facebook ads to promote it. It was simply just a post and an email because, yeah, I just wanted to close and give people, I just thought like a couple of key people would come back and buy. I didn't realize there was so many, so many key people and still emailing me. I feel so bad. I'm like, oh, I really don't want to keep making them. Sorry. But yeah, that's kind of a little bit of a sum up of how I got to the closing point.
I'm curious about this comedian, and this is the only question I'm going to ask about these viral videos because we don't need to give them any more attention. But also I'm so sorry for that experience. I think it's very understandable. So many people on the internet really don't think about the impact, the very real human impact their satire and their bits make, or their direct criticism of a product makes. But did you ever get in touch with the person directly or have any kind of interaction?
My first reaction after I could see again, because my eyes were so, when you cry too much, was like my normal fix it state. Like I was like trying to work out where he lived. I was like, oh, I could send him like a basket to say sorry and like something nice. And I was like going through this whole plan in my head of what I would do. And then he released the second video because there was only one at that stage. And then I was like, if I do that, will I become more content? Will this go not the way that I wanted it to go? And then I actually reached out to another candle maker who owns a very successful candle business, a very lovely person, where I've been sending people when they ask me where to get candles from now. But and I told her everything, showed her the videos, and she kind of gave me the advice that it might just become more content for him if I reached out, and the fact that if he was really upset about the product, he would have reached out to you. And I was like, oh yeah. And the consequence for me that also came with that was where he purchased it from was my biggest wholesaler at the time. And then I had them very nervously and understandably wanting to pull the pin. So it was a lot of, at that point, going back and reassuring them that, I was making changes and trying to keep them on board. And very luckily, they did. So I'm very thankful because that would have been so crushing at the end of the day if I'd lost them, because they were a big part of keeping myself afloat at that time. And yeah, it would have really devastated me a bit further. But at the end of the day, I decided not to reach out to him. And then, yeah, I kind of took that really bad avoidance thing. If a customer sent me the video, because I was just like, I don't know what to say. Where's AI when you need it, right? Like, just write me out this sentence. It wasn't that big back then, actually. It's funny how quickly it's grown. But yeah, the answer was I decided not to. And I actually feel okay with it because hopefully it's getting buried somewhere down in the algorithm now. It does make me sad that, when I close, that's the last like essence of Stump Co that's left in the world. But there's nothing I can do to change that. So it's okay.
Well, I think you underestimate the essence that you're leaving based on those emails that you have said that you've been receiving, and the quantity of sales and the very human connection. The internet is a fickle place, and often what we see on there is like in one ear and out the other, for so many people. So I think you are underestimating the positive essence that Stump & Co is leaving in the world there. Receiving those emails and those, can I have more, but what about this, they feel like little sneaky tests from, I don't know, call it the universe or whatever, but they feel like little prods to, are you sure, are you sure, are you sure? Did receiving those make you falter with your decision at all about moving on?
If they did, it was probably only for like a millisecond because I'd already started to move towards what I'm going towards, and that was more exciting. It was probably just like the nicest thing that I could end on, especially with like how tough a business can be. And to be honest, I don't know if it's like something with the human brain, but the negative seems to be what you remember over the positive. And like I mentioned the 5-star reviews, but honestly, I couldn't tell you what one of them said, except that I read them and smiled when I read them. But when I actually read the letters from people, and it wasn't just about, oh, the candle smelled nice or burnt well, like they were probably the most impactful thing I've ever received from a customer, because you think you're just making something that goes in someone's home and you try and make it like, the only way I found branding to work with me was to base it on like my life and my personality because I didn't have the budget really, or the kind of the team or the skills or whatever it was needed to base it on anything else that wasn't me. So that's why it ended up being this rustic, slightly cheeky, very Aussie brand, which worked. People liked it. So I'm glad that, it's kind of confirmation that maybe you have a cool lifestyle that people, they don't need the pretty pink candle. They're actually more interested in the things that relate to their life. And when you be real, you're going to end up with more connections. And that's just how it goes.
I don't suppose you'd ever consider treating me to a cup of tea? Hear me out. If you love the show, you've probably heard me talk about how much of a labour of love it is creating it. And I do love it. And I really love to hear about how it's supporting you and have big dreams for bringing you more content more often so we can keep growing our businesses together. But the reality is, as an independent podcaster, I bring you this content for free. So if you love the show and the content I create for you, perhaps you'd consider buying me a cuppa to show your support. There's a link in our show notes and in the info about the pod section that says support the show by buying me a cuppa. And that link will take you to the official Buy Me a Coffee website. If you haven't heard of it before, it's a fully legit third-party donation platform for creators where you can make a small donation, the cost of taking me out for a cuppa, because I don't drink coffee, via all the expected types of payment options. Or just head to buymeacoffee.com/unemployedpod. I appreciate you, amazing listener. Now let's get back into the chat. Authenticity does most certainly shine through for a lot of brands. I think we underestimate the power of that sometimes when we get a little bit too fancy, trying to make it something special, something well strategized. That's for sure. You've talked there very briefly about something that's calling you and the thing that you're moving into. What is it that you're thinking is next for you? How did you come to the decision about what was next for you as well?
Oh, I have a couple of things next. Can't do one thing. It did come through, funny enough, a diagnosis. So I went and got tested for ADHD and for learning disabilities, which is not a fun one to talk about. No one wants to have them. But through that, I got a lot of answers for just who I am and the things I struggle with. And now I've been diagnosed as ADHD. So I'm combined. I'm inattentive and hyperactive. And it's an interesting one because I also discovered that, without going into it, but trauma can affect how your ADHD is affecting your day to day. And through a lot of listening to different things, and I've actually started therapy. I'm like, look at me, I'm an adult. And then I also have the script to go see and go on ADHD drugs, but I haven't made that phone call yet because I kind of want to settle my brain a little bit through what I can control. And I think the therapy has been interesting because I've kind of discovered that if you have trauma throughout your life, that can really make your ADHD more present and more out of control. I guess that's how you describe it. So kind of my aim is to know that I'll always have that, but I don't want it to affect my day-to-day so badly. So yeah, I just want to have it. I don't want to suffer from it, if that makes sense. And there is a suffering side to it. There's definitely, it's more than just losing your phone and your keys, although that's incredibly annoying. And now that I don't have Leah to find it, I have to wear a watch or something to make it beep. But anyway, a lot of it's in the annoyance for me, the getting sidetracked to the point where I just become so far behind because I haven't organized other things. And the emotional regulation is one that I really suffer with. I'm either really happy or I'm really angry. And some people will be like, you don't get angry, Tegan. And I'm like, well, I'm really thankful that you've never seen that, because the other part of it is when I've had kids and as they get older, the parenting of children is a real struggle. And I feel like that has brought out a lot of my issues with controlling my emotions. And I don't want my children to pick up on that. But the whole thing with ADHD being a superpower, I mean, if that makes you feel great in the morning, then cool. But for me, it doesn't. And it's because I haven't really learned how to handle it, how to draw it back. I'm still in that stage where I'll know that I'm doing it, but because I've been told that this is what it is now, but I still do it. and really trying to get past that and just become a more functional person, which would be great. But the learning disability side was a lot more of an emotional part for me. So I have dyslexia and I have severe dyslexia. So I grew up really struggling in school. I was pretty much moved from Queensland to South Australia in my first year of school. And because of my age, I was put into like the same age class, but I'd never been in school. So it was a rocky start from the start. And it was also like early 90s. So dyslexia was something that wasn't really understood in any sense. It was like, oh, you must have a sight problem. I remember having my eyes tested for sight. It wasn't I can see fine. So they concluded that that was fine. And I was just fed the story for a long time that I was just behind at school. I just had to catch up, But the thing with probably the combinedness of dyslexia and ADHD was that I got really good at hiding my dyslexia to the point that if I tell someone today, they're like, it is, oh, that's such a funny response. I don't know if other people have had this, but when you actually get diagnosed with something and you tell people, so many people's first reaction is, no, you don't. And you're like, nah, I just like wasting money on diagnoses. This is really fun. It's become a hobby. No. but at the same time, it's because you realize that that's just not something that that person's ever seen in you, or they love you regardless. Like my poor husband and the things that he puts up with. I lost the house keys for an entire year, but anyway, they're back, so you can't rob us. But, anyway, there's dyslexia diagnosis was the big mover for me to decide to do something that I would 17-year-old me would laugh in your face. So I'm actually going back to do my master's and become a primary school teacher. So yeah, that'll be a year and a half starting Feb, which is scaring me a lot because unfortunately once you get the diagnosis for dyslexia, it doesn't cure your dyslexia. I still got it. And there's also no magic pill. So I'm going into teaching for the reason that I believe that there's a lot of kids out there with learning disabilities that are still sitting in the main classroom like I was, learning the same way as everyone else and falling further and further behind through ways of like masking like I did as a child and just becoming really clever at hiding it, which is a very interesting thing about dyslexia. So something I didn't even know because I felt secretly dumb my whole life was dyslexia is actually diagnosed through a difference in your IQ and your actual reading ability. So I think that's probably the nice thing about getting diagnosed with dyslexia is actually confirming that your IQ is pretty good. So I did also get told, which was kind of sad, that because I've never had any help with my learning disabilities as well, so I also have dyscalculus, which is the maths one, and then there's the writing one as well. But my dyslexia and ADHD really affect my ability to just grab a pen and write. So although I don't have that as a disability, it's majorly affected by one. So yeah, it was a kind of a nice understanding, which is similar to maths. Like I can do maths, but I have poor working memory from ADHD, which is why I can never remember anything. So you'll have to Google half of the things I say, to be honest. And yeah, so it was through like learning a lot about that and then just deciding that, you know, if I can make one kid's life a little bit better than what my school life was, then going and getting a teaching degree and learning how to teach, even though I can't do exactly what I'm teaching sometimes, I think I can offer more in my life experience to that child than being able to spell responsibility correctly. So, which is another thing, actually. I was going to bring this up. If you're a grammar Nazi, this has always irked me, and you need to correct people all the time, on the internet, especially now. Just kind of think maybe that person has a disability before you go and do that, because I spent my teen years in the period of time where spell check was not a thing, and my friends had to read through. They still have to read through my writing. Like, just because you're good at something, like if you're really good at motorbikes, like are you rubbing it into someone else that can't ride motorbikes? Like just chill, man. Like it's cool. People can spell things wrong. Just read through.
It is a very, very nice reminder. And what a gift that you're planning to share with those students? I mean, what an intense journey you're about to go on with, completely changing your day to day and, studying at that level and then going into a whole new challenge as well. But just a beautiful gift to be able to refocus yourself, to be able to support people who didn't quite have the support that that they needed, that the support that you missed out on when you were going through that process. I think that's just such a beautiful thing to be going on and doing. Do you think you would have gotten to this place where you were seeking diagnosis, or where you were kind of looking internally and starting to think about you and who you are, and your day to day and what you need to be able to get to this, I'm going to do primary education now, without Stump Co?
Oh no. So I remember when you asked me my first question on here, what did I do prior? And I thought, oh God, don't make me talk about that, because it was such a, I don't know what I was. But yeah, I think, no, I wouldn't have, because with the learning disability that I do have, and I'm still not even comfortable saying to someone, like, using oh, I have ADHD, that's why I'm always late, or can you spell that for me? Because I'm dyslexic. I still don't want to say it out loud. And I don't know if I ever will, but I was at the stage where I was kind of just fighting. So when you do have dyslexia, if you do relate to this, like, you're working your butt off hard normally gets you to about average. Like, it becomes this really strange relationship with working hard, because you have to work hard at everything. Like, it doesn't come easy. And it's also one of those things that people just expect you to be able to do. So your lack of ability to do it is just not, sometimes it's just not even feasible to someone. They're just like, why? So I'd spent my teen years as quite the feral, to put it that way. I almost got kicked out of, like, a Catholic school, but the principal liked me enough to give me another chance, and I wasn't going down a very good path. Like, I was just teen drinking and all that kind of thing. Like, I was not an inspirational person. But in my head, for some reason, I always wanted to be more than what I was. And I think at that stage, I wanted to be like an actual artist, like in a gallery and stuff, which I didn't do, funny enough. But that was kind of the dream. And I got to year 11. That was going to be I was allowed to stay at school. So I really kind of knuckled in, and I had like a terrible hope at an OP at the time, which I think was like 22 or something. And I ended up getting down to 10, which was nice. I had more opportunities. And then very last minute decided to go be a photographer. I didn't even own a camera, nor had I really taken a photo. So it was just this, I need to get out of this small town, which I now live in and love, and run off to the city. And I did that. And it was just kind of just a whole heap of lostness, like just looking for the next thing. I thought I was going to start a business, and randomly, God knows why, a bank gave me a 10 grand loan to buy all of this camera equipment, which I ended up selling to go do graphic design, which became like all these little stepping stones. Like, uni was such a shock to me, like, especially having dyslexia. Like, I had never done referencing or anything before. And I remember the first like art theory thing I handed in, the teacher literally crossed it and wrote, "What the hell is this?" on it. And then she also wouldn't answer my email because I didn't spell something correctly. I like shortened it. And at the time, like, I just constantly being told throughout my life that no, you're not, because dyslexia had come up, and I kept getting told I wasn't. So it was just this feeling of like, you've just got to try harder. Like, you're not good enough. Like, do more. And then I just bounced from job to job. And I got to the point where I was like, if I'm going to be anything, like anything, I've got to do it myself. And you've got to figure out what it was. So I really quickly put together like Luke was kind of the same. We've been together since we were 16. He was on a lost track. And then we kind of like came together, and we're like, okay, you pick your thing, I pick my thing. I think we talked about it on the first one. And that's when I knew like that was the only way. If I could make something for myself, then I could say to everyone that, everyone that's ever judged me for not being able to spell a name on a coffee cup in the shitty jobs that I worked, that I could do it. And it was the only path for me. Like, I was in a graphic design job, but there was nowhere room to grow. No one ever took me seriously as well, because I never felt comfortable with the professional persona that everyone seems to just naturally be able to like swack on. And I just thought, I'll have to figure it out. And so I did. I figured it out, and now I'm leaving it behind. But anyway, so yeah, it was really like, if I didn't make Stump Co work, there actually wasn't another option, to be honest, at that point. There's a lot of times that I hear people that like will start one thing and then they'll move on to the other. With Stump Co, that was like my like I do it or I don't. Like and the don't doesn't exist. Like for so many years, the don't just didn't exist. I would just go to bed and I'd be like, today was horrible. Tomorrow you wake up, you do something new. And I just start each day that was really bad like that. And at the end of it, there was no more pressure to have such a do or die attitude to the business. It ran kind of without that supervised pressure to, like I think I stopped running Facebook ads last February and I was still fine, which is nice because Facebook can be an expensive venture. But anyway, yeah, it just lost all that. You have to do this. You have to do this. Like so many years I spent saying I have to do it. People would be like, no, you don't. And I'd be like, no, you don't understand. This is my thing. I have to make it work. And I think that was another part of just realizing where I was at, that it was time to look for the new thing, because I really lost that you can't take this away from me attitude to the I would almost give it to someone that I thought would make it grow. So yeah, that was an interesting thing, because a lot of people as well are like, oh, why don't you sell the business? Sell it, like just sell it. And I was like, yeah, why don't I just sell it? And I looked into selling a business and I was like, oh, I have not done this right. So one of the key mistakes I made was I financed a vehicle on my business, which was a great feeling when I did it. I was like, look at me. But at the end of the day, the business owns my car, which becomes problematic when you're selling it, because I'd have to sell the car with my business or I'd have to buy my car out. And for us to buy the car out wasn't something that was going to push us forward in a good financial position to buy out something we already were paying for. And then I also would recommend, if you're thinking I would like to sell my business rather than close it down, to actually speak to your accountant, because there's a big difference in, running your business for tax purposes and running your business to sell. Majorly, you want to make sure that your business is looking as profitable as possible. Whereas I was sitting in the tax purposes, just trying to do everything legal, let me say legal, that I could to reduce some of the mass and the tax and all that fun stuff that you have to pay. So yeah, I just came to the realization if I wanted to sell it, I was going to need it like 12 to maybe 2 years to really plump it up and get it ready for sale. So I was like, no, that's not going to be something I'm going to be able to do. Yeah, and then also the finance, like getting it valued and all that stuff, was just like something that is definitely doable and you should do if you want to do it. But I was like, I don't need that in my life. I'm good. So yeah, it became an easier decision to not sell. But it does make me sad, because I especially wanted the Australia Zoo products to keep going, because they're my pride and joy.
There's so much to value with what you just shared there, but it's so clear in your story how much business is often a tool to teach us more about ourselves, to prove things to ourselves, to see ourselves grow, to be nurtured. It's so much more of a personal adventure and growth tool, or call it a personal degree, than it is just simply an entity that exists for a commercial outcome. And hopefully that's also purpose led or purpose driven as well. It gives you something as a person. But besides from all that, it really is that perfect display of the intersection of entrepreneurship and personal growth that I've become completely obsessed with, which is just the inability I have to separate the two, because it's so clearly taught you and brought you so much home to yourself and to know about yourself, that there's just such power in that. Currency is a million things. It's not just the money that we make, but the currency of being able to meet yourself and get to know yourself deeper and be able to grow through it and get to the other side, to something new, which will probably lead you to the other side of something new, is just so incredibly powerful in what you just shared. But yeah, also that IP that you develop through the process of doing it, there is value in that. What you have learned about running a business, what you have learned about running a business while also understanding how your brain uniquely works. That's such a powerful thing that you can share with other people. There's so many gifts that can come from our businesses.
Yeah, you're right. I often spent a lot of time just listening to podcasts and doing, I think it was like just a self-growth journey, to be honest. I went from the start of like, I remember when I used to sell art, being like, well, how much do you want to pay? to to like understanding how to actually set prices and all these kind of things. That it's not just setting your price, actually, it's like having the confidence to back up your price, which I cheekily kind of did at the start, because I made terrible candles at the start. Like, oh, sorry, but my friends and family brought them, so it's fine. They still love me, right? But I priced them the same as people that had been around for a long time, because I didn't. It's funny because if you price really low, people are kind of like, well, what's wrong with it? And then if you price about the same, they're kind of comparing the other brand to yours. And then if you price a little bit higher, they're kind of like, well, why is yours better? Like, it becomes that question. And it's become a play of that over the years, actually, of just being able to have your confidence in your pricing, but then also understanding the time that we're in.
So you're now coming to the very, very end of Stump Co, and starting to move on, both emotionally. I mean, it sounds as though you've emotionally moved on before you're physically moving on, which I think is so often the case for all of us. I think we get the feeling that the thing that we're doing right now isn't exactly right long before we're intellectually able to go, oh, that's what's going on. I think it happens for a lot of us. But coming to the end now, having shared your story so beautifully and with so much incredible insight for so many of us who will go through this experience of creating something, feeling really proud, seeing it grow, and then deciding it's not the right thing anymore for whatever reason. How are you feeling about it now, about what it's going to feel like to not have anything to do for Stump Co anymore?
I think I'm nearly at that, because I've nearly wrapped it up. So I think I'll just feel happy. Yeah, I'm not really sad about it anymore, which is a funny thing to say. Like, I'm getting quite close to it being done. And yeah, it's like, I don't know, it's anything with your life. Like, it's just another chapter and you just get to close it. But I'm very lucky, because I'm closing. I do really appreciate the fact of how lucky I am to close my business on such a term that isn't like financial pressure or something drastically bad. Like, it was my decision and I got to close it my way. Like, there was no pressure from anything. So I am very lucky to just be able to do that. There is a lot of businesses that don't have that opportunity. And I think the only thing that I would have changed, probably, if I could have gone back, was I would have probably really not picked candles, to be honest. I think I think my goal in life was to just prove I could do something. And I wish I'd done a few more side hustles. I wish I had just tried a few different things rather than going so much into one basket. Because, yeah, I think a lot of people put it, especially if you have ADHD, they're like, oh, you always, do something and don't complete it. But that's actually great, because you get to cross that off as not the thing. And you will find the thing. Like, yeah, this is a whole nother chat, but I'm actually going to go into business with a friend as well next year. So, yes, I decided that business shouldn't be a lone venture, despite all the negativity you hear about having partners. Because I realized everything in your life I couldn't imagine doing without my friends and family and kids. And yet I set so solely off on my own venture on business. And all it did was take me away from everything I loved. So, yeah, with her, I will feel not alone, which would be amazing. And I'll do so many things differently. I literally have a list of things that I'm not going to do.
What is your business?
So funny. If you are one of my customers, over the years, you would have received a cookie and hopefully enjoyed that cookie, because Beck makes that cookie. And I have often sat there while I've been packing for a long time thinking, I'll just eat one of these. Like, it's fine. And I thought, there's a better cookie business. And we've talked about it for so long that when I saw her on Christmas, I was like, okay, bear with me. I know this isn't probably what you're planning for 2025, but you want to go into business with me? And she's like, oh, okay. And it's pretty much as simple as that. We've known each other for a very long time. And it's just such a great thing, because she has the product skill and I have the other side skills. And I actually am not the greatest product producer. Even though I make candles, it's not my favorite thing to do. The rest of the business is. So, yeah, I'm going to take it a lot slower. I'm not going to discount, sorry. I've decided that, because I just say on discounts before I close, they are great to keep the money coming to your business, but it's also so hectic on yourself because you're making a major volume of product for less than you intended to sell it for. And I love a discount. Everyone loves a discount. But for me, cookies, I can price well. I don't want to discount them because they're so delicious. And if you're buying a cookie, it's a treat. So treat yourself. Yeah. And I just want to run my next business with the motto that, really proud of what I'm putting out there in the world. And if you want a discount, there'll be a box that you can buy them cheaper in. And that'll be your grouped one. So I'll have you covered, but you'll have to eat more.
Amazing. I mean, that's so wonderful to hear. Business is something that once you get the bug, it can't really leave you. There's always something that's going to come up, and those abilities and those skills that you can apply to something new. I think that's really wonderful to hear that you're taking those skills into something new, but also doing it alongside something that is for you, is for the children that you're going to be able to support. That it isn't everything. I think often when we make our businesses everything and our sole revenue stream, and so reliant on its success, it can be a little bit damaging. It depends so variable to the business, the person, and the lifestyle. But this is the stuff that we need to talk about more often. That, I mean, personally, I couldn't relate any closer to the duo effect, like the effect of working on something with somebody else. I'm someone who absolutely thrives working with somebody on a shared mission, and working solo, it can be really negatively impacting to other areas of my life. And so I really relate to that a lot. And I just absolutely relate to something else that gets your attention and you think, this is the next challenge for me. This is the next challenge. And business can be that. We don't need to do it forever if forever doesn't feel like the right thing for the self or for the business itself either. So I just can't thank you enough for sharing your journey with this so honestly. I think it will absolutely be the thing that somebody really needs to hear if they're considering this, to see what it feels like to go through the process, and the fact that it's not easy and it's not always joyful, and it's often very personal, and there's so much into it that needs to be considered. So it has been so wonderful to hear this story and be able to share it with the listener. And I'm of course going to link your original episode as well in the show notes, so if anybody's coming into this for the first time can hear the whole thing from beginning to end. I think it's just so incredibly powerful. How can we thank you for sharing this story? Are you ready to have a new social media profile for the cookie business, or is there a way in which people could get in touch if they wish to say thank you for sharing your story?
Well, I still have the Stump Co account, but yeah, we're not ready for the cookies yet. We're at the taste testing. I mean, she's got the sugar cookies now, but taking it much slower this time. So yeah, I don't know. A silent thank you is good enough for me. If I said anything of value that helped, I'll feel good about that.
Well, you absolutely did. And I look forward to chatting to you again in the future with your new business partner when you are ready to take that out into the world. Tegan, as always, it's been so lovely to chat with you. Thank you for sharing your story with me.
That's okay. Thank you for having me, Kim.
Thank you for listening to Unemployed and Afraid, the podcast for small business builders with your host, me, Kim Curtin. If you love it, you can say thanks with a star rating and a review. And of course, join the community on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Find us at Unemployed and Afraid wherever you're hanging out, and I'll see you there.